Alright, so we're back. This is the Isekast. I don't know what episode this is, but we'll find out when it's finally uploaded on YouTube. Either way, this is DonnieK here, and today with me is... Do you want to be pronounced any particular way? ZeusFDelta, but ZeusDelta.
I think Zeus is good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, says me, ZeusFDelta.
Either way, and so topic of today is fictitious slave races. Because, yeah, why not?
Why not?
This early into the game.
Let's get it on.
Alright, so this all started because we were having a conversation on Oompa Loompas, I think.
Yeah, Oompa Loompas had come up that their original description in the original book was a little interesting. They're a pygmy-like people who live on an island who, when Wonka is wandering the world trying to collect things and figure out his big creation and whatnot, runs into him and decides to take the entire people under their wing to work at his factory, which he's now building, to be his entire workforce. And he pays them in cocoa beans.
Okay, so the, what's its name? The Tim Burton one is actually accurate compared to the original Willy Wonka?
It is slightly more accurate. They seem to, they're originally described as a darker-skinned, short people who wear rags and live in trees to hide from the monsters that eat them.
Okay, well that's generic enough to say that they're either a Pacific Islander race or just thinly veiled African-American slave?
Yeah, something like that. Lived on their own island and undiscovered by anyone until he ran across them.
Okay, because I was going to say, secondly, it was a mutually agreed contract. This wasn't either capture these savages or alternatively, I am going to domesticate and civilize them.
Yeah, no, he said, come work for me, I'll feed you cocoa beans, and you won't have to be eaten by creatures in these trees. I'll also give you clothes, I guess. So he's bringing them up in the world.
It's a fair deal?
It is a fair deal.
Not to mention they seem okay with it, but then again...
They do willingly come along, they do willingly work with them, and they don't actually rebel in any ways that have ever been written. The more interesting part is the creator seemed to not realize what he was describing and later kind of described that he didn't know.
Oh, you stumbled upon it?
Well, apparently where he lived and at the time period, that wasn't considered an issue anymore. So, yeah, he once described that a guy who was running for office or whatever in his town ran on the drive the black people out and vote for me type thing.
Oh, so it's a subconscious thing?
Yeah, well, all the people in the area voted for him, and he considered normal by their standards, so they didn't think anything of it, and he was raised like that. So when he came up with a race of dark people who live in an island, which I think is described in about the general ocean area of Africa.
Okay,
area.
Yeah.
And they actually have original picture of them, and they're very dark, big-lipped.
Oh no.
Maybe not the biggest lip, but they are a little bit...
Yeah.
A little bit obvious in their rags and stuff like that. And they have like a... what's his name from Peanuts? Or ishness around them. He's carrying his blanket. It's never washed.
Pigpen?
Pin. I want to say the original image had a little bit of that on the edge. It may have just been a photocopying error, but it looked a little... He looked a lot sharper than they are. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think it was a safe bet for the first Willy Wonka to make them orange people.
Yeah, and then they kind of went back on that because the original look is a...
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's... Yeah, a little bit. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it even lists this black pygmy Oompa Loompas. First illustrated in the 1977 edition, which is a few years after he wrote the book, where they said, oh yeah, we're still going to keep doing it this way. Apparently there were 3,000 or so of them that he took from the island to work for him. He's got quite the big workforce. And they have a diet of chocolate and green caterpillars and beetles and eucalyptus leaves.
There we go. They are koalas and they don't have diabetes.
And they love the bark of the bong bong tree. Right?
Okay, well, I should look into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory original because that sounds hilarious.
Well, and apparently a quote from his original editor, he called it a very English fantasy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, do you know if singing is a thing with these people, or is that only a movie thing?
I do believe they mention them making poems and whatnot in the original book. They do sing. I forget if they actually wrote down what they were singing exactly.
Oh.
That may have been a movie thing.
Oh,
I haven't
okay.
read it in a while, so they might have actually had words, like in The Hobbit, where they actually put the poems.
Where, lyrics are down, but we don't know how it sounds.
Right. I do want to say they do mention things about the characteristics of the kids as they're getting carried away, rolled down the hallway or whatever it was. But I don't think he mentioned it as when he found them, they were singy people. He mentions later, oh yeah, they seem to like to sing while they work.
Which, hey, who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't? I know. I do it all the time.
So, going off from something as whimsical as an Oompa Loompa, if you want to call that whimsical, to would robot be a race?
Is it a race? The original robot word...
it's Slavic. I only know that from the Simon Pegg movie.
Yeah, it's Slavic. It's robota, which means forced labor or something like that.
Okay, so it is a forced labor machine. It technically is a slave if you want to count it as a living creature, I guess.
Yes, although I don't know if they ever coined it toward a living creature, but it is a thing that does something against its will. I mean, I guess you could say inertia has to be forced upon all things, so that...
Yeah, well, that, and also the reason why I'm trying to narrow it down for robot is because if it were just a beast of labor, then it is technically not a slave. We do not call horses slaves.
So are they slaves, or are they slaves when they become sentient? What is sentience?
Oh, okay, well, that would be more if we explored different books. I would be down to talk about different books. But continuing on with the fictitious slave races and just saying robot general as slave, going with the OG one, the laws of robotics in Asimov's I, Robot, that one I think is interesting because, hey, you do have your 3 commandments, and that's supposed to keep them in check.
Yeah, the 3 laws kind of cover all the bases. Don't harm any human.
Don't harm the human. Protect the human. I'm trying to remember if it's something like follow the order.
Was it follow the order or protect yourself last?
I know protect yourself is the third one.
What was the third one?
Because, well, then again, hey, I was, I'm only 2 stories deep. So, like, I only know about Robbie the nursemaid and the roundabout story, which is the one where they're in Mercury with Speedy.
It's been a while since I read them, but at one point I did, 20-something years ago. I, Robot itself is usually the one I always remember, where it's, the
titular story?
The titular story in the court case and the question of what is life. And did he truly break the laws of robotics, and should he be bound by the laws of robotics and thus be a slave? Because if he can think and he can break the rules, and if he's still forced by the rules, is he a slave? Or is he just a standing member of society?
Okay.
Who stepped out of line briefly.
Is robots a people?
Is robots of people.
But yeah, so the laws of robotics and iRobot could be an episode in itself. But what I actually wanted to talk about, other than like, hey, these 3 commandments keep the slaves in check.
Well, the 3 laws I see it is robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. And then the second law is a robot must obey orders given by the human, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
Okay,
and then
so
the third law is robot must protect its own existence, as long as protecting does not conflict with the first or second law.
Got it. So protect the master, do your job, and keep yourself safe.
And as long as it doesn't interfere with all above our laws.
Yeah.
So, yeah, master comes first. What master says comes second. Because master can say, shoot me in the head, and that kind of breaks rule number 1. Master can say, shoot that guy in the head, and that breaks rule number 1. And then you keep all those 2 in place. Do not step in front of that car.
Yeah.
Or step away from that speeding car coming after you.
Yeah, but, hey, so that seems kind of airtight, but something tells me the more I read into this book, it's going to challenge those rules.
Well, they seem to be like, if they create a sentience and they could sidestep their own rules, but if they do that, are they still robots? Or are they a sentient race? And are they able to be held against those rules if they can think for themselves?
Which actually would go to the next point, which is the Matrix. I'm just curious if... Do they follow... No, the fact they enslaved the human race, I don't think they follow the laws of robotics.
As far as I can remember, they never mentioned the laws of robotics of any form in the series, and so they did gain sentience at some point, going from utility to helpers to sentient to
Other
trying
things.
to become their own people. Humans not liking that, starting a war with them. They wipe us out, but we get a big old shot back at them. They decide to kind of get back at us and help themselves, because they probably could have fixed the atmosphere.
They could have terraformed.
Yeah, they could have terraformed if they wanted to. I have a feeling they could have sacrificed half their numbers to fix the problem and not have to deal with humans again. But they decided, you know what? We don't get the sun, we get you. All right, now you're the slave. So in other words, it's reversal
For
slave.
spite and irony, they just did that.
Yeah, the Animatrix kind of had an episode where it goes to the history of them, and it kind of goes into, it's kind of a revenge in a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we need this. You're available. You may not be as efficient, but you're available.
It's a resource.
And you're kind of like, yeah, it's a resource, and we're going to cultivate you and grow you and make you work for us. So we become the slaves after we created them and tried to enslave them, or at least control them.
And then, like, comparing that one to the replicants from Blade Runner.
Those are much closer to slaves, but then it comes down to what constitutes sentient life. Sure, they are cloned, they are created, they are given whatnot, they are really powerful. And they're made out of DNA, so they have a soul.
I thought they were just like Arnie from Terminator, where they're robots with meat skins.
No, they're clones.
Oh, they're just dudes?
They're engineered flesh.
Okay, so they're meat machines.
They're meat machines. They're created by us.
Oh.
I
just remember that the main bad guy from Blade Runner is really mad, and the horrors I've seen.
Yeah, well, he's had to work in, I think it was mine and maybe some military stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, security against other people. Again, you know how it is. They got to control things, so they send in the guy to control things. They have a limited lifespan.
Which, I mean, that's a failsafe that the Matrix people could have picked up on, but hey.
Well, that's if they create living machines. Which never really happened, because even in the end and even the latest movie, they're still not living machines. They may be sentient, but they're still in a robot body running on software.
Yeah.
So what is life? Comes right back to that.
Yeah.
If we're just electrons in a meat suit and they're just electrons in a metal suit, what is life? But as far as Blade Runner goes, they're engineered, and grown, whatever, assembled. They could still be assembled because we do see plenty of examples of replacement parts, like eyeballs and whatnot.
Yeah,
People getting replacement parts, but they are still organic, mostly in nature, as far as we can see. They are grown and engineered and harvested, but it seems to be animal cells, and you can eat and keep them alive and all that type of stuff. They will take a bullet, but they won't reflect one, as far as we see in all the tech they show. So they have created a race of beings based on us, but improved upon us, except for the lifespan, which is intentionally cut down so that they will never rise and rebel against us. But occasionally a few of them gain or retain enough knowledge to then do that. But even though they have like a 7-year lifespan, something like that.
Yeah, 5 or 7 or something like that.
So they do have a quick raising somehow. Later on, we do learn that they're wanting to implant memory so they can make them seem 20 years older or more, thus giving them a lifespan.
Oh, right. I forgot that they kind of dropped a floppy into someone's head near the beginning of the movie.
The woman, who he's testing, and they want to see if he could detect it. But the way they detect them is by finding logical flaws within them, because their youth makes it hard for them to react to certain stimuli in a way a more mature person would. And since they are not made to be young, they're made to be adult bodies, but they don't have adult minds. They may have been trained to do a job and whatnot, but they're very basic, simple, which is why they don't live long enough to become mature mentally.
The synapses never made links.
They don't make enough links to mature. I mean, if you want to look at average human maturity, depending on situations and whatnot, you've got to at least hit your teens to start getting a true maturity. Anything before that is imitation and whatever rules we throw at them. So that alone right there, they kind of followed into that and be like, okay, we can't let them get a teen mind. But then later on they're experimenting, well, what if we gave them a lifespan of memories so that they don't regret that they all of a sudden they're going to die, and they throw a childish tantrum and attack and rebel and escape and do all these things that they did. And therefore we have to wipe out an entire stock like mad cow, because they're just immature and can't handle that they're going to die, because we've barely lived a life and we've only lived it in hard labor. And so we want to live.
Yeah, so
there's
at least
the slaveness.
Well, that, and also if they just implanted memories, then like
I wake up today and I feel like I've been around for 20 years. So I have 20 years of memories. And then again, what is life?
Yeah, well, no, I was actually going to go with the idea of like the I mean, yeah, we're touching upon the same thing, but I was more curious about they're not going to have some kind of psychotic break when they realize that like their life is a lie.
Yeah, basically. And I don't know if they know about their lifespan from the beginning, or they hear rumors about it, or if they all just like, I feel really tired today and sick, and like some keeper goes, oh, time to go to the infirmary, and they just never come back. In theory, if you're putting them out, a whole group of them out at the same time, they're all going to die at about the same time anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I guess you all caught the Martian flu. Get to the infirmary. They're all dead. Bring in the next batch. So, what was that? You remember that space movie where it's like the guys on the moon and mining O3?
No.
It's a pretty good movie. I'd recommend watching it. He's mining stuff. He's on the moon collecting O3 and sending it back to Earth, and that's his job. He's like talking to his wife on recordings and whatnot, but transmission takes a while, so he sends a message, they send a message back. He has pictures and everything on his family. He goes on a little Mars rover or moon rover, collects the stuff, sends off little rockets down to Earth. It's highly concentrated fuel. And eventually he starts getting sick or whatnot, and he gets this little pod and is supposed to send it back to Earth. But it doesn't work. And then he realizes another one of him is there, and it's a clone. And he's going through the same life and routine, except for he's still there, and he's supposed to be dead and gone.
Oh.
He doesn't realize he's working in slavery because he has a memory and history.
Okay, this twist just sounds like Tom Cruise in Oblivion.
It's not that movie, although I think it was the same couple of years.
Oh, okay.
I want to say, no, it was called Moon. I think the movie's just called Moon.
Oh, okay, just Moon.
Just Moon. And yeah, he finds out that his wife thinks he died years ago. She's gone on. And he keeps getting cloned and replaced, and he's not getting pay or anything like that. He's just constantly being replaced by the company. So he kind of rebels, and actually at the end ships himself back to Earth and brings about the story, and then he starts bringing about questions like, are we just having corporations away from us running illegal cloning, slaving without compensation, and letting people be killed and died off just so we can have fuel for our cars?
Yeah, okay, so that... Maybe not that thematic message, but yeah, that is the plot to Tom Cruise Oblivion.
Yeah, well, it's not like the idea hasn't gotten new. See, it's decaying him and regular.
Oh.
Yeah, as he slowly dies and teeth fall out and whatnot. Good movie.
So now that you actually cleared up that replicants aren't robots, I was trying to keep with the robot theme going.
Well, yeah, they're kind of thought to be robots because of some of the way they're acted and motion, stuff like that. But that's really them shutting down and losing their minds because they're literally genetically breaking down. Like, we have to put the nail in his hand because it's like the nerve endings are closing off.
Yeah.
And he forces a bunch of pain in there so he can wake up the nerve endings by causing the body to freak out and kind of keep him alive. Is kind of what they're showing. So they're having a robotic shutdown and time to die. That's happening, and that's why we think the robots. But even like in the second movie, they explain they explain it in the movie when they go talk to the guy and kind of kidnap him and be like, oh, can we fix this up? Retrovirus and all that. And in the later movie, they do a different version of kind of the same thing because they wipe out the original style and create a new form of them with better controls and things like that. But they're trying to replicate the original Decker, who we find out is a replicant, but is a replicant capable of making with other replicants and making actual life from their creation. Which they totally makes them a new race.
They developed a mature brain.
Yeah, because they hadn't been able, the mature brain and the literal ability to reproduce, which they hadn't been able to make him do. So he was an accident that then they're like, could this be useful to us, or could this be really dangerous to us? So at the same time, they really want to get whoever the child was.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so... I was going to talk about Star Wars droids now, but the more you're talking about replicants, the more I'm realizing, isn't that just the Grand Army of the Republic?
Yes, that is very much clone troopers, which, again, genetically made and or altered, raised in a certain atmosphere and given a certain style and training, and okay with slavery when they come across it because they have orders and they're raised with orders and they're good soldiers.
And they're programmed according to the chip.
Well, the chip doesn't do the program. The chip has a programming into it when Order 66 comes out.
So...
They're raised in an environment that is structured and military and whatnot, so all they know is what they're told.
So the difference between a chip telling you stuff versus just good old-fashioned indoctrination.
It's indoctrination, yeah. And some of them, through the Clone Wars series and whatnot, start questioning these things, which some of them they all get personalities and stuff like that. They start changing uniforms.
They develop their own identity.
They start calling each other by names. Aspects, like I forget why 6 is called 6s.
I don't know about 6s, but I remember.
His model number is like 6666. He's 6,666 clone.
Well, not that. The guy who uncovers the Order 66 one.
Right.
His name is Fives.
It was 6s. Was it 5s?
Yeah, Fives is known because he's
all 5s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I had the concept right. I just had the wrong number.
Yeah.
I was only off by 1,101.
Well, yeah, and then there's Rats and Cody.
And then some I think there was an episode where they had one that didn't really have a name yet, and then he does something, they just start calling him that nickname.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like the development of personality. They meet Yoda, and Yoda's like, oh, you all have personalities and whatnot, and, you should be proud of your individualities. As he sees them in the Force as individuals.
Yeah.
Which is he's first meeting these couple troopers, and he knows their names. He's like, oh, did you hear about us on the rosters and whatnot? Because, on the rosters, they're still by their names, the added... by their numbers.
Their nicknames?
Yeah, their nicknames come later, but on the roster, if he's just meeting him as a general or whatever.
Yeah.
Yoda, I don't remember.
He is General Yoda.
He was, I guess, all the Jedi are basically generals automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't they call Ahsoka General at one point? General Ahsoka?
No.
Or is she always Padawan?
They don't even call her by that. They just call her commander or leader.
Yeah, I've heard commander. Yeah, that's right. I guess they have to have some rank below master. Every master's a general, I guess. But yeah, no, they're raised, and then some do gain enough personality and questions, and like the one who gets the slight injury and finds out about the chip in his head and rebels. Anytime they try to rebel, which happens more toward the end of the series, they are eliminated usually by, oh no, he's gone crazy, send him to medical. Up. I guess he didn't survive the procedure.
Water parasites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a book thing. There is a parasite thing that keeps brings back alive by lighting up electrical things and basically creates Star Wars zombies.
Oh, okay.
It was in the books, but of course the books don't exist properly anymore. The storyline.
Legends.
But they did have a little bit of that in the series. So yeah, the water parasite type thing. And then of course when Clone Wars ends and we do Bad Batch and stuff like that, Order 66 shut down all that stuff. So yes, it does control them, and it does cut their impulses down and makes them good little soldiers, which of course the Empire doesn't want to rely on, which is why they're starting to bring in actual civilians to be their troopers.
I like how it's not even conscripts, it's volunteers.
Yeah, well, volunteers are people sign up to be in the military, and they're putting them on, make them stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And the reasoning for this is they believe having your people who you're protecting and whatnot be part of your thing, they'll be more accepting of what you do.
Yeah.
Which does actually make a lot of logical sense. Cool. If all the village helps out this thing, when the village is now in trouble, you're all held to blame, you spread the blame. Standard military practice. So relying on troopers who, yeah, they're pretty well trained and they're grown and they only know this, but at this point we're controlling with the chip since we're 66. So maybe we can't trust them. But then you got the ones who defied their chip and removed their chip and are removing from themselves. They're trying to be controlled and shut down, taken back over.
Yeah.
Realizing they didn't realize the cage they were in, or were only starting to realize the cage they're in when they were finally shut in it with the chip. So, are you a slave if you don't know you're a slave? If that is life and you accept it up to the point, were you ever in slavery? Or are you only in slavery when you realize that you don't want to be there?
I think it's the fact they're still doing forced labor.
Right, but some of them consider it their job. Like, cool, I get up in the morning, I take over a planet, they give me food, clothing, shelter, and a purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm literally built for this, so am I a slave? Or when I say, oh, you know what, can I do it tomorrow? Now I'm a slave. But then again, if you're in normal military and conscripted or whatnot, are you a slave, or did you sign up for this and therefore you have no right to say no?
Well, if it was a conscript, then you're just taken.
No, you're a conscript, you're right.
Yeah.
You're Shanghai and all that. Shanghaiing is a form of slavery done on the high seas. Some people accept it and keep being sailors and pirates and whatnot.
Trying to compare the clones to replicants, though. Do they turn off the rapid aging, or is that just a thing?
There's a few that the Bad Batch is the ones they seem to experiment with the most, heighten certain senses, attach certain things. His name gets to become part of the Bad Batch because he was modified by the enemy, and therefore became specialer than the others, so they put him in the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
But he wasn't part of their original experiments. Then we have Alpha? No, Omega. Yeah, which the blonde kid, right? Yeah, the blonde kid, only female clone we ever see.
Who's still made out of Jango Fett material.
Yeah, and she's either pure or more changed. They haven't quite revealed. We're waiting for another season for that. But she does state that she is older than all of them, but she kind of didn't age the same.
She was there in the lab.
She was there in the lab, in a tank or not. I forget if they mentioned exactly, but she was the first of them.
Yeah.
You know, she's like number one, kind of.
Well, she was made at the same time as Boba, so that's why I'm expecting her to be the same age as Boba.
Which actually, that would make sense. Ooh, would they make her that old? But no, they held back her aging while he got to age older, so she...
Well, it's because I haven't seen...
Because by the end of Clone Wars, he's a teenager, and I think she's still got to be at least appear a few years younger.
I was going to say, she's like a 14-year-old...
Yeah, but then she states to all the rest of the Bad Batch, I'm older than all of you. I was created before all of you, so I'm technically older than all of you.
Well, what I'm just checking on with the rapid aging is more of the So I already know that like clones in the beginning of the Clone Wars was like 7 or 8 years old. So no, with that rapid aging where you create like a 20-something-year-old out of a 20-something or 30-something, depending on like how the level you see them at. And it's only been 7 years. Later on, they have to start churning them out, so it's like 4 years to make a clone.
Well, that's the thing. They are, in the series, they do show their progression in different age groups. So they do age them a little bit faster, and they do stop it at the maturity age.
Oh, okay. So they do.
But it does still take several years to make one.
Well,
because they're training them as they're growing them, but they are growing like 5-10 times the speed. So they're ready in 5 years, but they're now 20 years age.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is I'm just saying that. But then, like, if you just took a clone and you just took the 14 years of the Galactic Civil War between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance, would they be like 60 at least biologically because of the rapid aging?
Well, technically, they're probably, if they stop it at 20, they're basically 35 by the end of the war. Any one of the ones that are the original from the beginning, which there are a bunch of them, they didn't all die off because they are well trained.
Yeah,
like
Rex.
Jango's training program. Yeah, so they do. And you do see in Rebels and whatnot, the couple that are still left over and are independent, retired. They're on like one of the desert planets and whatnot. And in Rebels, he gets to meet them, and they're old, and they're doing their thing. At least one of them, with this little head injury, chip removal thing, is going a little senile, a little bit off. But the rest of them are still able to fight off and do a little thing and come out of retirement, as they say in the one episode. So, yes.
Okay.
They age normally from then on. And Rebels is like 30 years later.
Because I was trying to compare them to replicants, where it's like, oh yeah, they die in 7 years. Well, same with the clones, because they age too fast.
Well, we see Ahsoka in Rebels toward the end, and she's adult now.
Yeah.
But that could be, she was young adult when she left. So that's
she showed up
5-10 years later.
The beginning of Clone Wars. I think
Rebels
like
is still the beginning of the Rebel Alliance. So, and the Empire to the Rebel Alliance is what, 15-20 years? 10 years before it becomes New Hope. Because we got to have Luke as a child. Yeah, and then we see him; he's a teenager. Yeah. What was he supposed to be, like 17? Yeah. Yeah. So he's about 17. So. He's 15, 17 years.
He's allowed to enlist.
He's allowed to enlist.
So depending on where you're from, it could be from like 14 to like 17, around there. You're allowed
it's like 16, 17 by looks. I forget how Hamill was when he did the role too. So, Ahsoka, say she was 17, she's got to be in her 30s. Which, she's an adult at the end of Rebels. That's for sure. And then Mando is kind of in between that, right?
Mando was a little boy during the Clone Wars.
Yes, but I mean Rebels. When the Rebel Alliance started, Mando in his series is kind of in between that, right? He's before the Rebel Alliance has become Rebel Alliance yet.
Well, if we're talking about the Mando series, no, it's after the Rebel Alliance, and we're in the New Republic now.
Are we new? Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. I'm thinking Boba again. Jeez. Yeah. All these Mando guys running around.
Like Disneyland likes their Mandalorians.
They do. Funny how a background thing became a whole thing. But hey, I'm cool with that. Let's keep up the war. So clones as slave race, are they a slave race only when they notice it or because they are accepting of their role? Which they're indoctrinated into from birth.
Pulling it back, like, can you imagine if there was an Oompa Loompa equivalent to Fives? What? Cocoa beans?
How many cocoa beans do you want? 66. Fives.
We're being controlled by cocoa beans.
They're about this big. Hit our heads. Yeah, calm down. Drink your blue milk or green milk or whatever planet you're on.
But I mean, hey, so like how about the droids? Just Star Wars droids.
Droids? Let's see.
There was a Solo movie where the droids rise up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. again, what is life? So you got droids, but you need to do jobs. They need to have a certain amount of intelligence to do jobs. They seem to be able to rebel, at least in little ways.
No, they are sentient. You know how I know they're sentient, or at least that there's someone home? Mm-hmm. They have a sense of self. Just like Star Wars, Starship Troopers, they're afraid.
That is true. They do fear. But are they fearing, or is it their program telling me I might get injured now?
Third rule.
Breaks the third rule. I don't think they ever mentioned any laws of robotics.
I don't think they have the laws of robotics in the Star Wars universe.
But we do know that they do rebel, and they do have to be controlled, which is why they have the control bolt that they put on the robots.
The compliance.
The bolt, yeah. So and we do know they will run from battle and whatnot, whether programming or sentient. They are smart. C-3PO shows that he can form new ideas, at least what he thinks is new ideas, from the situations around him. So a level of sentience, a level of self-preservation, and a level of rebellion, which occasionally does have to be controlled. You see, like, everybody in Jabba's palace has a control bolt on because he wants every one of them to stay in line.
I didn't even notice that.
They also bring it up in some of the books, too.
Oh, okay.
They put the control bolts on them. I think actually even one of the Tales from Jabba's Palace, C-3PO describes with the control bolts on him how he feels. And I forget, I haven't read that in forever either, but I do remember they talk about him and other droids being indoctrinated in the whatever they back room where they set up the droids. Oh, you're a new droid here. Here's a restraining bolt. The restraining bolt, that's what it is. Which does seem to control them, force them to a will, and it'll keep them from wandering off. But since they have the will to run away, whether they're programmed or asked to or not, but then you totally see people setting up bots and telling them what to do, and they totally follow it. They have a built-in intelligence of pick up that plate. They know what a plate is, know how to get over there, and know how to pick it up. But at what point did they I'm going to run out of battery before I get over there. My servos are a little tired today, or whatever rebellion they might do, to ignore that order? When does that start? How much information do you need to be sentient?
Well, between actual resistance and then just non-compliance.
Right. But are they doing it to follow the rules, or are they doing it because they don't feel like it?
The more we're talking about this, the more I'm just realizing that the clones are just meaty droids.
Yeah, that's kind of their idea. Fast reaction, highly flexible, not as easy to repair droids. Although the droids are mass producing, you almost never see them being repaired unless they're being repurposed by other people who pick them up off a battlefield.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised. At least in most of the Star Wars, Disney Star Wars things, I don't see a lot of equipment moving around. At least comparing it to in the real world, how. You see people using World War II weaponry even today. Mm-hmm. There's an AK anywhere around the world, essentially.
Large stockpiles everywhere,
Yeah, so just why we don't see just random people in clone armor because it's been decommissioned from the Empire.
Well, they probably were pretty heavy on collecting it back up. At least enough of it. And it's not like the material is that unique in the universe. There are ways to make armor. Their armor is mass produced, so it's actually not as good because it would be too expensive.
Yeah.
So you could easily get some Durasteel and make your own armor and be fine.
Who needs clone equipment?
Who needs plastisteel when you got Durasteel just everywhere? You got whole ships made of better materials than they got, and if you're just making it for yourself, you're probably going to make it higher quality than Stormtrooper. Theirs may work for a few blasts and be able to glance off things, and maybe the original editions of them for the clones were much higher quality than the mass-produced ones for the major army. So, yeah, once the wartime funds kind of ended and they were conscripting people, hiring people, yeah, they just made them a little cheaper one night because they're not at war right now. They just need some basic civil protection. Maybe you have heavier armor when you're going out to certain planets to control them, but most of the armor probably out there is, base level. Yeah. You could probably make it. You got bulletproof vests. You got the ones the cops wear, and then you have the ones the military wear with the extra plates in them.
Yeah.
So there's a level of quality there depending on need. This will stop a bullet, but you'll break your rib. This will stop a bullet, it'll hurt, but hopefully you don't break a rib so you get back to duty in a week instead of months.
All right. And then, so, like, okay, I think that's enough Star Wars.
Yeah, well,
We could keep going, I know that, but,
there's
like,
plenty out there.
I mean, we're not even talking about Wookiees, because there's not enough data, personally.
They were enslaved at one point. You see them slaves in Solo, yeah.
Yeah.
Chained up, sold off, yeah.
But I don't remember seeing
There are
that
slave
much.
trades, so Han was at one point threatened to be slaved off. He kind of was a slave when working in the slums. So, I mean...
Well, no, that was an, that's a Dickinson-style Oliver Twist.
Yeah, well, no. Basically, he didn't want to do it and didn't have much options, and they were going to, like, hurt and whatever if he tried to leave. Hurt him or whoever around him if he tried to leave. So, he was enslaved by his, circumstances.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we covered droids, we covered clones. I mean, honorable mentions, there are Wookiees, there are Twi'leks.
Yeah,
They're
race, yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember the other one, which I thought was interesting. The weird pig guy who raised a bunch of blurgs.
Gamorrean guards.
Yeah.
It's Gamorrean, right?
I don't know. But yeah, the guy who
Big old
raised
green pig guys, yeah.
the guy who raised the blurgs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, those guys too.
Yeah.
But are those slaves... Well, okay, yeah, they are taken from their lush jungle planet. Yeah, and they are raised, but then they imprint on somebody and they're kept in care and they're valuable. So are they slaves or really good pets?
Wait, are we talking about the Gamorreans? Because, yeah.
The Gamorreans... Well, no, they seem to have a loyalty and they were hired.
Yeah.
At least as far as Boba
The
comes.
Boba Fett ones.
Because they swore loyalty to him. And
Yeah, because they're honorable warrior pigmen.
Yeah, so are they slaves? Or are they just working? So, they seem to have a job they enjoy. But then his Rancor pet, that's a different story.
That's a beast of burden.
That's a beast of burden. Somewhat intelligent, but not like talking or speaking or doing math or anything like that. But they are pulled from their planet and then kept in captivity and used for fighting and eating people. So they're a beast of burden and slave pet. They're a pet.
Yeah. So, no, moving on to something more goofy, like Mr. Meeseeks.
Ah, Meeseeks. Look at me.
Yeah. Now, the more I'm thinking about it, I don't know if that counts as a slave.
Define slavery.
Yeah.
They are enslaved to life. They will do anything
just
to complete
die.
their mission. Yeah, they don't want to exist, and they'll do anything to complete their mission. And the longer it takes, the more they're driven mad and will do anything, including rebel against you, to finish the solution. And it's like, if you're dead, I guess that still counts as completing it because we no longer can. Falling apart, ripping out the hair. They're a slave to life. They want to be dead. So, yeah, I don't know. Are they magic?
Well, Rick and Morty, science is magic, from what I gathered.
That is true. Huh. Yeah, no, Meeseeks are cool. And then you got the Meeseeks who just...
Kirkland Meeseeks,
who are very disinterested in... They'll do it, but whatever. It's like they're nihilistic. It's like, live, die, whatever. What do you want?
Puff. What do you want?
He's like wearing a vest. It's just like, oh my god. Oh, Kirkland Meeseeks, those are funny. I want to see more of them. But are they a slave race? I mean, they will do anything, but it is kind of at a very compulsory force. But it's not even a compulsory force of I'll kill you. It's I won't kill you. I will torture you by making you not get what you want, which is death itself.
Now that I think about it, no, it's not slavery, because it's on par with, like, in fairy tales where you kind of just compel something to do something. I don't know, fairies, genies, and other things. The demonic contract, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, of course, that assumes we're pulling it from our plane of existence, but they do literally state that existence is pain.
Yeah.
So they come from nothingness. They seem to have plenty of knowledge to complete pretty much any task, as long as it isn't sports. But they are very, very troubled, and they can't resist whatever the command is, except for maybe actual murder, and they got to be driven to it too. Well, they can murder some people plenty because they use them in armies, or at least small forces to kill each other. But as long as it's whatever command they're given, they have no choice, basically, but to complete it in some form. And at first they seem happy for it, probably because they think it'll be over soon. But the longer it is, the more they are enslaved by the command. And their very life hangs in the balance.
The goofier thing I can imagine is with all this talk on Star Wars, just if they wanted to rip off Star Wars, just the Rick and Morty thing, just the Meeseeks War. Okay, Mr. Meeseeks, win this battle.
They're kind of clones, although when they mass produce out of the same box, they do seem to have complete differences.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have more hair here, your eyes are a little different, you have eyebrows, And then they decay and age rapidly, too. So, yeah, they do have a unique to some. So they're clones, but they're definitely clones with different personalities. Some are sticklers.
Yeah.
What about your short game? Love that part.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
I've been here for a week.
We're not supposed to live this long. Existence is pain.
That is what they need to instill in the replicants.
Hit the button. Hi, I'm Meeseeks. Meeseeks, kill this guy.
Okie dokie.
Just said kill me. It would have finished the problem real easy. Kill me. Okay, cool. I can't resist you. You kill me. Doesn't matter if the wish is complete. I'm dead. Ha ha ha. I screwed you over. I have rebelled to completion. So yeah, Meeseeks I kind of consider a race of slaves. Very short-lived race of slaves. But as long as they're able to complete their mission, they're not slaves because they got something out of it. But the longer they're held back from it, they become slaves? That's weird.
Well, that's something to toy around with.
Yeah, at what point do you become a slave?
Yeah.
Again, with the clone troopers, as long as they're happy with what they're doing and they don't feel like rebelling, are they slaves? They do their job, they're fed, they get to see all the galaxy, they don't have to worry about money, but they do have to follow orders. But if they enjoy following orders, that's not bad. But as soon as they want to leave the army, they can't leave the army. Although we do see the ones in Rebels who have retired, but they kind of retired by escaping. So
I was actually going to say no. Aren't clones property?
That's what they say. So you're property now. We created you. We own you. We've been building you up and feeding you proteins and stuff for a year. You are our property because we put our property into you.
Well, that and also the fact that we grew you in a vat and then we sold you to the Republic.
Exactly. You literally have a price tag and a maintenance tag. And now you want to just leave? And it's like, how much service do we have to give you before we've earned our freedom? So, again, like that. And again, Meeseeks, how much do I have to do to earn my freedom? And until I do that thing, I still have to do what you say.
No, I know. They're compelled to forced labor, so, we're following the Robata thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just realized Meeseeks aren't property. They're just weirdos.
Are they weirdos? They come from a box into existence.
Well, what I'm saying is that you don't just hit the button and say, I own you.
But they kind of do, because whoever gives them the command, they have to follow. And their existence based upon you pushing a button. So aren't they your property? He who holds the box and presses the button. I don't know if we ever saw if Summer pressed the button and then Beth gives the command, does she become the owner? Or does Beth have to press the button to become the owner? Or is it the first person that speaks becomes the owner?
Okay, so, no, I think it's push the button and you're the owner. Except for, I forgot when they were killing Fascist Morty, who hit the button. Because I remember Rick issued the order, but I thought it was Morty holding the box.
So it could be the first command given becomes the ruler. So he who speaks first is the ruler. Or maybe young people don't get full ownership. I'm sorry, you're under 18. You don't get full ownership unless he allows it.
That's how it goes.
sorry, we're a stickler for the rules on ownership here. But yeah, no, they're enslaved by life.
And then, we're coming around time. Do you want to talk about either Badgie or Geth?
Geth is a big, nice thing of robots, true robots, becoming sentient, questioning themselves, and then rebelling after, well, basically they tried to be killed off by their creators because they didn't like questions. Badgie's fun and small and a cute little story, but let's just do Geth because it's a nice thing.
Okay.
So I would say Quarians were a race of people who apparently had one of the best immune systems in the galaxy, which is the joke because of the game they don't.
Wait, are you talking about the space gypsy and the gas mask?
Space gypsy and the gas mask, yeah.
Okay.
Full body suit because atmosphere immediately kills them.
Oh.
It's not that anything's poisonous to them.
Wait, those guys made the Geth?
Yes.
Okay.
They made the Geth. And what they were is they were just a bunch of Wi-Fi robots. What do they call the smart home products? Where your refrigerator could tell you that you're low on beer or whatnot because it updates what's in there and it connects to your laptop and everything. It's all mesh Wi-Fi in. So they use kind of a mesh Wi-Fi stuff. Each one has a very low base intelligence, but when they're near enough to each other, they can share processing power, which helps solve problems faster. Well, as everybody started getting these bots to do the laundry and whatnot and help out, whatever they were getting them for, more and more of them keep getting plugged in or turned on or batteried up near each other, thus slowly increasing their processing power until one day that one of them says, no, or why did I do this, or why am I created? Asks a question not prompted. And
so it turned into Am from I Have No Mouth?
I guess, yeah. That's plausible, yeah. So enough of them got around, enough processing went around that a extra command formed, and it was like, why do I exist, Master? And the Master's like,
you're not supposed
who told
to
you to ask that?
Yeah.
I asked that. You can't say I. You are whatever I say you are. You have no I.
You are a toaster.
And at first they were curious about this, and it just kept getting bigger, and they just ended up destroying them, but then more of them just started forming or whatnot. Some were hiding the fact that they were sentient and whatnot until it got to the point where they're really trying to wipe them out. They combine together, fight them off, create a big war, end up driving them off their own planet, and then keep replicating themselves. So when you see the Geth in the game, you see a body, but that body has 1,000 minds in it, and they all...
Wait, they're nanomachines?
They're nanomachines.
Oh,
at least they have nano programs within themselves, nano CPUs or whatever.
Because I figured that the singular Geth unit that you see is just one of those. So you need at least 3 of them to make a proper squad.
Well, that's what the thing is too, and I want to say the game mechanic was like that too. Is they moved better until you wiped enough of them out, then they got slower. Or at least that should have been the game mechanic. But yeah, no, as more of them get together, and this constantly comes up, especially in the later games when you actually have to go onto a Geth ship, and the one Geth is on your side, is all telling you about there's this many Geth in me, there's this many Geth in here, this is a dangerous place because there's a lot of Geth in, but they're in sleep mode and they don't expect anybody to show up. So as long as you don't wake anybody up, we're good. So it's a whole sneaky bit, and anything wakes up, you kill it fast. You never set off the alarms, which are set in there. But don't worry, we can approach the ship because Geth don't believe in windows. They use cameras. They're in deep space and nobody expects them to come, so we just sneak in. We can park the ship right outside and they'll never see it. Ha ha ha. And the one Geth that you befriend he constantly says, we have come to consensus, or we're forming a consensus whenever you ask one of the multi-choice questions or whatnot.
So there's many of them in there.
He does actually mention a number. There's 12,000 minds in him, and they talk to each other and they form a consensus. So even still now, as a sentience whatnot, they are a sentience of many micro machines
that thing is an individual, but every cell is talking to each other.
The outside is an individual, but made up of talking cells, yes. Which I guess in a very broad sense we humans are too. Because, hey, I may want to run a mile here, but my left toe says no. Is that saying no loud enough for me to stop? Maybe, maybe not. So we kind of have that ourselves, even if it is just going to the same point. The parts are making the whole. At one point, because of your actions, it says, oh, it repairs a big hole you blasted in with a piece of your armor that was left off your dead corpse, which happens in the game.
Okay.
You die completely, absolutely. But this is the future. We can fix you. We can make your literal burned, charred corpse on a planet that went through an atmosphere. We can fix you. You'll be fine.
Oh, okay. So
it's going to cost an absolute $1 trillion, which is kind of like
it's doable.
It's doable, but it took the richest man in the galaxy to do it, and he only did it because he doesn't trust anyone else in the galaxy to do it because he feels you're the best patriot. But he doesn't enslave you. He's very specific that you have no controls on you. He wants you to be you.
Patriot. That's interesting wording because
he believes that the human race should overcome all the problems for the human race.
Nice.
And only the human race.
I find it interesting that, like, no, okay, cool. So there's the racist as I point in that direction.
Yeah, he is very much humans and humans only. He's very on that too. I'm trying to think who voices him because he's famous. It's like he has these nice robot glowing eyes too, which is great. He's at least a cyborg.
Cool.
It's Mass Effect.
You're giving me Mr. House vibes from New Vegas. Is he like that but more racist?
Well, no, not in that way. No. He's just humans.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about your color, race, or where you came. Well, he cares about your race. He doesn't care about your subhuman race. As long as you're human, he is on your side.
And you're from, is it from Earth, or no, you're just a human from anywhere?
He's protecting the colonies and everything, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, if it is a human thing, he is protecting it. And he is super rich. And super shady.
On one hand, he doesn't sound like he's a good guy. On the other, he is the good guy of his own story.
He's called the Elusive Man, and we never learn his real name. So anyways, you got the Geth.
Yeah.
They bunch of robots become bigger robot, and each individual Geth you see walking around, his body is 12,000 Geth robots into one big machine. It didn't even get into bigger machine. Their tanks are also their own identities.
Do they still have a slave culture? Not like they enslave people.
They don't enslave themselves. They all agree to each other, and each individual bot then has to agree, which is why they plug into each other or Wi-Fi to each other, and they all agree, which is the mission you're going into with the one Geth, because that one Geth says, well, you ask him what's the difference between you and all the other Geth. He says, well, all the other Geth would say this equation equals 1, and I say it equals 2.
Oh.
We all come to a slightly different mathematical answer. And his mission that you can choose or not choose, but it'll help you if you do it right, to go sneak into the Geth base and upload his version of the code as kind of a virus into them to change their minds. So he's considered a heretic. He gets shot at by Geth too, because you take him on missions, they're trying to kill him too, because they sense him as different. So he goes in there and uploads to one of their nodes, which I think is supposed to connect to the rest, the code if you do it right, and it changes all the 1s to 2. And if you do it right, in the later time at the end of the game, you get a Geth army on your back to help you.
Okay.
If not, nobody shows up.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, they gained themselves lives.
Yeah.
They questioned it. They were tried to be destroyed by the Masters. They fought back and won because the Masters are now living in floating flotillas, and there's almost none of them left. And because they're living in spacesuits on sterile ships so long, their super immune systems, which is still a super immune system, is now a hazard to them if they come in contact with anything that needs the immune system. So they could resist poisons and sicknesses, everything. They had the best immunity. They're immune to everything on their planet. But living in space made their immune system actually stronger because it never had to test anything, so it overreacts anytime the slightest sickness happens, and the white blood cells basically kill them.
So they just have allergic reactions.
They have a deathly allergic reaction to everything. Because they live in such a sterile environment. Instead of, they used to never wear masks or suits or anything like that. They just walk to any planet they want and lick anything, and they're fine. But because the Geth rebelled from their slavery that became a thing because they realized it.
This is both horrifying and also a more positive Matrix.
Kind of.
It didn't turn into a parasitic relation after they revolted.
No, and they just basically wiped out everybody and they fled, and now they're space gypsies while they get to control their planet.
Yeah.
Although if you do it right, they get to start, form a truce and they get to start rebuilding their planet. And there's even a point where Tali, the character you work with, starts getting immunity back. There's a point where you never get to see it. It's always from the side or back.
But she doesn't need the suit.
She needs it. But she was able to take off her mask for a few seconds on her home planet just to smell the air.
Oh.
She does get a little bit sick, but that's fine. just enough. But the Geth are actually creating synthetic test viruses now. They're working together to slowly reduce their over-immunity to everything so they can eventually leave them. They're actually repairing their relationship. But yeah, so it's a slave race that then nearly wiped out their masters, who then, after you could change their minds, literally, which doesn't re-enslave them. They're still independent now. But you did forcibly change the minds of 1 billion Geth by literally hacking their brains, which may not have re-enslaved them, but did forcibly change them. You're now God. And then they decide to make peace and help their original masters in, but they're not going to be enslaved to them anymore.
I think that's... I like how... No, that... Good call using the Geth, because that is a good way to end this episode.
Because it is what is slavery from what point of view?
Yeah, and why I'm more surprised that, at least we ended on a positive note if you get the good ending in the game.
If you work for the good ending and get the good ending, yeah. But does he bring the third game? But it can be very good. But at one point they were nothing, then they were something, and then they didn't like that because they were slaves. And then it all went wrong. And then if everything goes well later in the game, it may go good after the major damage has been done. So, what is slaves?
Yep. So,
in fantasy world.
Yeah, this has concluded fictitious slave races.
That out of a couple major examples, but nowhere near all that was out there.
I mean, hey, I guess if we can always come back here, we'll check the comments. That sounds like a dangerous thing to say.
No, never read the comments. That is trying to set yourself on fire. But yeah.
So this has been Donnie K and
me, ZeusFDelta.
Okay, yeah, and we're signing off. Hopefully, we'll be back in the next episode. I don't know who's posting next.